The story takes place in Alabama in the mid-1800s. Records from the county courthouse mention two sisters who lived on an isolated plantation. Their names appear often in tax ledgers and property transfers. Local accounts describe them as twins who stayed together all their lives. They inherited land, livestock, and a group of enslaved workers from their late father. This is the background that shaped every decision they made. You learn that the sisters ran the estate without outside help. They avoided marriage. Neighbors wrote letters that show how unusual this was for that time. Most women in the area married early. These two did not. Their choice kept all property rights inside the family. Their land value increased each year. Cotton output from their fields supported the entire operation. County archives mention one enslaved man who appears in several entries. His name is written as Malcolm. He was 27 years old at the time. His role on the plantation is described as field worker and stable worker. Later papers include notes that he often worked near the main house. This tells you he was trusted. He was also healthy and physically strong. Plantation owners often assigned such workers to areas close to the house for heavy tasks. Witness diaries from travelers passing through the region mentioned the sisters' unusual habits. They rarely attended gatherings. They did most of their work within the estate. They handled decisions about crop schedules, transport deals, and financial planning. Their independence created tension with nearby families. It also made them the main subjects of town gossip. Over time, several oral accounts suggest that the sisters formed a personal attachment to Malcolm. You see this pattern in old servant testimonies recorded decades later. Workers describe frequent visits by both sisters to the barns and storage areas where Malcolm worked. They brought food and water. They supervised repairs. They stayed longer than needed. These details repeat across different storytellers. This consistency gives them weight. County midwife ledgers list several private visits to the plantation by a woman named Agnes Porter. She traveled there many times over a 2-year span. Midwives did not record reasons for visits. They only logged travel and payment. Multiple entries in a short period suggest recurring medical concerns. Local rumors from that time mentioned secret pregnancies among women at the plantation. These rumors lacked names, but later oral histories connect them to the twin sisters. Letters written by a neighboring family mention a dramatic shift in the behavior of the twins. They became reclusive. They stopped attending church. They avoided supply shops. They sent workers instead. Their sudden withdrawal stood out because earlier records show they once managed many errands on their own. You find another detail in a probate dispute filed years later. A worker testified that the sisters fought often during this period. The testimony states that they argued inside the main house late into the night. Their disagreements centered on a man kept too close to the home. The court record does not use names, but the timeline and description match Malcolm. This is where the story becomes clearer. The sisters had developed separate attachments to the same man. The workers around them noticed. Conversations were overheard in the kitchen. One sister felt the other was taking too much of Malcolm's time. The other believed she had the stronger bond. Both kept their interactions hidden from neighbors. Both depended on the silence of enslaved workers who had no power to speak out. By the end of this period, notes in the midwife ledger show 2 visits only days apart. This is rare. Local health records confirm that the midwife cared for 2 different patients during those trips. The timing matches the later claim that both sisters became pregnant around the same time. This event changed everything on the plantation. The sisters now faced a situation that risked their reputation and property. They lived in a state where relationships between white women and enslaved men were both illegal and socially explosive. Discovery could lead to public disgrace, property seizure, or violent retaliation from surrounding families. To protect themselves, they limited all contact with the nearby town. They dismissed 2 workers who had questioned their actions. Their ledgers show reduced travel. They reinforced the boundaries of the estate. They also changed the work routine. Malcolm's name was removed from field duty lists and reassigned to private tasks inside the main house. This suggests they feared anyone noticing that the father of their children lived among the workers. The pregnancy timeline creates another layer of conflict. Records from birth registries provide no children under their names. This silence means they avoided formal medical documentation. They likely kept the births hidden. Oral accounts from former workers mention cries from infants in the upper rooms of the main house. They also describe long periods where the sisters stayed out of sight. This secrecy increased the tension between the sisters. Each believed her child should become the primary heir. Each feared the other might reveal the truth to outside authorities. Arguments grew louder. Workers described sleepless nights caused by shouting. Malcolm was caught in the middle. He had no legal power. He had no control over decisions that involved his own children. One winter, Malcolm vanished from the records. There are no sale documents, no transfer papers, no burial entries. He simply disappears from every list after a specific date. Some believe the sisters sent him away to remove the cause of conflict. Others believe something happened inside the estate. A fire destroyed one of the storage buildings that same month. No one reported a death. No one explained the cause. The event appears only in insurance claims. After this disappearance, the sisters isolated themselves even more. Their attendance at social events dropped to zero. They refused all visitors. They turned down offers from men who wanted to purchase parts of their land. Their financial records show stress. Cotton production slowed. Worker turnover increased. Some ran away. Others were sold. The environment became unstable. Years later, public tax records list the children on the property as orphans under guardianship. The papers do not identify parents, they only assign the twins as caretakers. This phrasing was common when women hid the identity of fathers. It allowed them to maintain property control without admitting anything. Rumors about the origin of the children spread across the county. Travelers recorded stories of two women who lived like shadows and children who looked nothing like them. These accounts came from outsiders who passed through only briefly. Even so, they line up with earlier testimonies from workers. By the end of the decade, the plantation entered decline. The soil lost quality. The cotton prices dropped. A loan taken by the sisters fell into default. Court documents from debt collectors show that the twins struggled to maintain the property. They fired more workers. They sold livestock. They closed parts of the house. The twins' relationship also collapsed. Their disputes became daily events. They feared betrayal. They feared exposure. Every decision carried risk. The children reached school age, but the twins refused to enroll them. They taught them privately instead. This added pressure. The children had no contact with the outside world. As the situation worsened, the county sheriff visited the property. The reason appears in dispatch notes. A neighbor reported strange noises from the house at night. Another mentioned concerns for the children. The sheriff left without forcing entry. He wrote that the women were uncooperative but stable. This was the final recorded interaction with public authorities before the estate fell apart. This is where part 1 ends. It sets the full background. It explains the environment, the decisions, the conflicts, and the gradual collapse. It gives you the structure needed for the final unraveling. The final years of the plantation exposed the consequences of every choice the twins made. The estate was running on tension. The workers felt unsafe. The sisters lived in fear. The children grew up trapped inside a house full of suspicion. Letters from a traveling merchant give you the first clue of the decline. He wrote that the windows of the main house were always covered. Smoke rose from the chimney at unusual hours. No one answered the door during the day. These observations match later reports that the twins stayed awake at night and slept during the day. They wanted to avoid contact with anyone who might see the children clearly. Worker testimonies also reveal a growing divide between the sisters. One twin accused the other of hiding money. The other claimed she was being watched. Their trust was broken. Their routines became separate. They stopped eating together. They stayed in different rooms. Their communication became short and sharp. The children felt this constant tension. A former worker who lived long enough to be interviewed in the early 1900s described the house as silent during the day. The children walked carefully. They avoided asking questions. They stayed in the same upstairs room most of the time. They rarely played outside. Every detail points to a household shaped by fear of discovery. The disappearance of Malcolm remained a shadow that followed every decision. Without him, the sisters had no one to blame except each other. Their rivalry grew stronger. One blamed the other for ending his presence. The other insisted it was done to protect the family. They never reached agreement. The children served as daily reminders of their conflict. Financial pressure increased. The bank issued warnings. Production almost stopped. Only a few workers remained. Most of the fields stayed untouched. The barns needed repairs. Tools broke and never got replaced. Every part of the plantation felt abandoned. One winter night, a large storm hit the region. Records show fallen trees and damaged roofs across several plantations. The twins' property took heavy damage. A chimney collapsed. Rain entered the upper rooms. A fire broke out in the storage shed. It spread fast. Workers formed a line to carry water, but the fire consumed most of the building before they could control it. This event pushed the sisters into panic. They believed the storm would bring investigators or neighbors. They feared someone would use the disaster as an excuse to enter the house. They hid the children in the cellar for 2 nights. Food and water were lowered through a hatch. This detail came from an oral history told by a worker who later moved to Georgia. After the storm, the county sent a clerk to assess damage for tax records. The twins refused entry. They insisted the house was unsafe. The clerk noted their behavior. His report mentions unusual sounds coming from the cellar. He asked about children. The sisters denied everything. The clerk left, but he filed a note about their refusal. This placed the plantation under review. As pressure grew, the relationship between the twins reached its breaking point. Workers heard a violent argument one night. Objects fell. Glass shattered. One sister screamed that the other planned to tell the truth. The other warned that the family would lose everything. These were the last loud arguments ever recorded. A few days later, one twin left the estate on horseback. This was rare. She rode toward the town but never arrived. No record shows her entering any shop or speaking to anyone. She vanished from all documents. Some say she ran away. Others believe she met trouble on the road. A few claim the other sister hid the truth. After this disappearance, the remaining twin attempted to run the estate alone. She isolated herself even more. She kept the children indoors. She dismissed the last few workers. She locked parts of the house. Neighbors occasionally heard crying from inside. They reported it, but no one intervened. 2 years passed. During this time, the plantation collapsed completely. Taxes were unpaid, tools rusted, the fields died. Even livestock wandered off, the main house decayed, the roof leaked. The remaining twin fell ill. She had no one left to care for her. Her health declined. This appears in medical notes from a traveling doctor. He wrote that she refused examination and refused help. When she died, the county sheriff was sent to secure the property. His report describes the scene inside the house. Furniture was overturned, papers covered the floors, doors were blocked by broken boards, the cellar hatch was open, dust covered everything. The 2 children were found alive. They were underfed but conscious. They were taken to the town's orphan registry. Their birth information was unknown. They had no official parents. Their appearance raised questions, but officials avoided documenting anything that could create scandal. They listed the children simply as minors under state care. The sheriff also wrote about one final detail. In a locked drawer inside the main house, he found a small piece of paper. It was written by the remaining twin. The handwriting was clear. It said that she and her sister had shared the same mistake. She wrote that the truth would destroy the land and the bloodline. No other explanation was given. After the sheriff's report, the estate was seized for unpaid taxes. The house was demolished. The land was sold in pieces. None of the later owners kept records about the past. Only fragments of the story survived in court papers, letters, and oral testimonies. In the decades that followed, the story became part of local folklore. People spoke about 2 sisters who lived in isolation. They mentioned the mysterious children who resembled neither parent. They described the missing sister. They wondered what happened to Malcolm. No one ever found answers. The final legacy of the plantation is built on silence. Workers who survived passed down their memories quietly. Families in the region retold pieces of the story. Documents in county archives fill in the gaps. Together, these pieces show a family torn apart by secrecy. They show a household shaped by fear of exposure. They show how private choices led to a collapse that no one could stop.